Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the next edition of Myths and Stories. Tonight's episode is part 2 of the Book of Sorrows with your hosts, Mythborn and Ztorialis. Take it away, fellas.
Luckily, my inline mute works.
So Zor has already broken down.
Already broken. Like
we're-
5 seconds in,
we're
and we're already
less than a
broken.
minute in.
So yes, this is part 2 of the Books of Sorrows. Last time we covered basically kind of I don't want to say the beginnings of the universe, but definitely the oldest
Not the oldest.
No, not even the oldest.
Beginnings of the Hive.
The beginnings
As
of the
we know
Hive. That's a better way to put it, because the beginning of Destiny and the beginning of the universe and all that stuff, that's all Winnower and Gardner. So we'll cover that some other time. But we talked about Fundament and how there was the warning to the king of the Krill people, or specifically that sect of them, the Osmium Court, that all the moons around the planet Fundament were going to line up and create a giant swell and kill everything. And so then there was this whole deal about that, and I am under the impression that it drove the king mad. But we never got to see how mad he would get, because one of his counselors convinced another sect of Krill to attack and kill the entire royal family. And so the three sisters escaped. The three sisters being Sarthona. You're gonna have to help me with the other two.
So they were Sathona, Shiro, and Arash.
Arash, that's right. And these three sisters, they drifted around the world of Fundament for a while in their little makeshift boat. And when I say a while, like it several years. Which for them is like half their life. Like, I mean, these things, the Krill only live to like 8, 9, 10 years old. And for them to spend 2 years floating around Fundament, like that's a fourth of their life, right? So they come across this ship, which we've been calling, or I think is referenced as being called the Needle, which Myth and I tried to find we found something similar to it in game, that could possibly be the needle that they found, or another variation of it, or maybe this was a fleet of needles, and the one that crashed is long gone, but the ship that is in game could very well be the needle. So they were trying to figure out what to do with this ship. One of them wanted to sell the ship to make money so they could hire mercenaries and take back their court. Another one wanted to use the ship to explore, and the third one wanted to defer to the other two, because apparently having a third opinion is a bad idea. But all of this comes down to where we left off last time, where the three sisters are in the ship. They've decided to explore with it, and they are the sisters. I don't remember who specifically possesses it, but one of them possesses the worm carcass, or the worm that their father listened to, that speaks to them, and in my opinion is literally driving them crazy. But it definitely speaks in that noun mine syntax that we know that the Ahamkara and the worm gods use.
Yeah. So the one that has this husk of a worm, this dead worm familiar, is Sathona. And she has very much been, ever since she picked this familiar up and started listening to it, has very much been trying to steer her sisters in a particular direction, under the guidance of that familiar. So they had found this ship and they were trying to decide what to do with it, and Sathona was steering them towards Arash's, I should say, was playing off of Arash's want for exploration and for discovery, even though she knew that they could have sold the ship and had more money than they ever could have dreamed of.
Which, the way you word it there, kind of makes me curious. this worm carcass is doing this in the same sense that an Ahamkara would, right? Like this is very much a like it's feeding off of this desire, right?
Well, we don't know exactly what this familiar carcass is. I don't
True.
know that it's ever been described as feeding. It certainly doesn't seem to be getting any more lively. They keep referring to it as dead.
That's true.
But it is very much steering them towards a particular goal, which we'll discover what that goal is probably later in the episode today as we read on. But it has an agenda. It has an objective that it's trying to get these sisters to accomplish for it.
Gotcha.
For reasons we can speculate about later, but are not truly known. But so this brings us to the start of today's, which is going to be verse 1-7 of the Books of Sorrow, called the Dive. For life, Savathun dove. For vengeance, Xivu dove. And Arash dove to understand. The needle ship pierced the skin of the world and burrowed deep. Through layers of foam and metal and cold elemental slush, Arash devoured the ship's maps of fundament from the high angelic cloud decks, down and down through the storms and oceans and plates of the floating world, into the crush of the core. They met monsters of continental scope, vast anemones that raised glowing tentacles to bait them in. Xivu flew the needle ship through them, and they bled black carbon, jelly, and frost. They came to a still place beneath a plate of metal. "I'll use the sensors," whispered Arash. "Listen." In the wet gold dark of the helm, they listened to the ship. The ship listened to the crushing motions of fundament. They heard the collision of continents. They heard the patter and the crash of helium neon rain. They heard the struggles of monsters, and they heard the distant groan of the ocean rising, tugged by distant moons. "The syzygy is real," Savathun hissed. "It's already begun." Behind them, Xivu thought of the birthing room, where ancient explorers had labored over surgeries and administrations, peeling back the chrysalis and the caul of that which they had made from the deep, whose birth none of them would survive. "There's something down here," she whispered. "Something secret." And the Leviathan loomed over them. Its brow as huge all the continents of their childhood, as huge as all the continents of their childhood. Its great array fins crackling with the lightning of life, booming into the hull of the needle ship in a microwave voice. "You must turn back. Save yourselves from the deep. Save the world from yourselves. You must turn back." So that's the end of that verse. And there's a couple things that I want to highlight here. So just to reiterate what we talked about during the first episode, the driving forces of these three sisters has always been what is now the feeding force of their worm.
Right.
So for vengeance, Xivu dove. Xivu now, Xivu Arath is, the Hive god of war for vengeance and wrath and, military might. Arash dove to understand. Oryx was the Hive god, technically, of knowledge and discovery. Just the way that they they discovered new things and learned new things, but they still obeyed the sword logic.
Right.
Now, this one is interesting, though. For life, Savathun dove. Now, I think based on the previous verse, which was 1:6, which was where we ended last time, Savathun was talking about we have to dive.
About becoming a mother, right? Like that was.
Well, she had been talking about becoming a mother before, and we had theorized that it was because she, she wanted to potentially have offspring. That
Yes.
she had like that maternal, that kind of maternal instinct. I don't know that that's the case anymore. Or that it was ever the case. I think she wanted to become a mother purely because it meant she lived longer.
Yeah, no, because that's something that we talked about too. Was that by
the
nature
mothers
of being
lived,
by the nature of being a brood mother, that they live longer than a standard krill.
Yeah, and at the end of verse 1:6 from the end of last episode, Savathun says, "In the world beneath us, in the metallic depths, I hope we may find what we need most: more time, more life." And it starts with "for life, Savathun dove." So I think her whole spiel, although we know her as the Hive goddess of cunning and deception, and which she does an amazing job at, I think her driving force is purely just self-survival. It's purely just she's
just wanting to live longer, like afraid of death.
I think so. I think that's really what it is when you get down to it.
That's an interesting thought. I'm going to put a pin in that for later.
Yeah, because we can maybe make some inferences around what we know is happening in the game currently and in the near future, or what we speculate is happening in the near future.
That is where my pen leads to.
With that idea, so we'll leave that for
that is my conspiracy board, and I've now pinned it, put my little red line, and pinned it over there, and now this red string over there now.
Yeah, so I think that's worth revisiting, but we don't want to derail quite this early.
You fool! Who do you think this is? What? Who's
so I
don't know where you've been the last 30 episodes.
So let me say this. I don't think we want to derail on this subject right now, because the next subject we are absolutely going to derail on. And that is the subject of the Leviathan that speaks to them.
Yes, absolutely.
So before we get into that, I want to read the beginning of the next verse, because the Leviathan's speech continues in that.
Okay.
And then once we have everything the Leviathan says, we can dissect it.
So real quick, the Leviathan is talking to them right now.
The Leviathan is talking to them right now, and we don't know what the Leviathan is. This is technically the first time it's been referenced in Fundament. We just know that it is absolutely massive. Its brow is huge as all the continents of their childhood. Its great array fins crackling with the lightning of its life. So it is big.
It's huge. Well, and we can make a lot of kind of assumptions here too. How we talked about how the mass of a gas giant has to be just or the sorry, not the mass, the gravity of a gas giant has to just be insanely high. There's got like that thing has to be able to withstand immense pressures of this ocean. That when their father talked to him about it, like, don't step off the edge of the continent or you're going to die. You're literally just going to fall forever until you die, because that's just the way the gravity is. Like, whether this be a sea of methane or whatever the sea is made of, whatever the liquid it is, anything that falls in it is less dense than it. So then, more dense. So it will automatically start sinking to the bottom. So whatever this Leviathan thing is, it's huge, and it has a crazy amount of it can withstand a lot of pressure, just from the ocean itself and the gravity of the fundament of the gas giant.
Yeah. I was trying to look up some information there to see if I can get any kind of exact info.
And I think we
in regards to gravity on gas giants versus Earth, because I'm not sure how they're.
I just think of it like
gravity compares.
What is the gravity of Jupiter compared to the gravity of Earth?
Right, and it may not
like
be
we know the moon is 0.6, right? So whatever the gravity of the moon is 6/10 of what it is on Earth. So if you weigh 100 pounds on Earth, you would weigh 60 pounds on the moon.
Right. Yeah.
So if I'm assuming Jupiter's got to be like, I would think it'd be like 6 times, So if you weighed 100 pounds here on the Earth, you'd weigh 600 pounds on Jupiter.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to find a source for. Is exactly what is the gravity on a gas giant compared to Earth? Because we're making a lot of assumptions based on that, and I want to know what the truth is. Assuming that it exists anywhere, because I suppose this is all going to be theoretical, because I don't know if they have any way to accurately measure the gravitational force on any of those gas giants at current.
Well, they do. They absolutely do. So from what I'm finding, based on its mass, diameter, and density, though you're right, we haven't really dove into these gas giants. So these are kind of just guesstimations on what it is. But from what I'm seeing, it looks like it's 2.4 times the gravity of Earth.
Okay. So let's see here.
Oops, sorry. Poppers being poppers.
I'm seeing a few pieces of info that are interesting. They take Saturn. So Saturn has an equatorial gravity of 0.9 g. I'm assuming g in this case being
should be, well, 1 g is gravity's Earth.
Yeah, 1 g is Earth's gravity. So
yeah.
So this would imply that it's actually a little less on Saturn, 0.9 g.
Versus Jupiter. Well, let me see what. So I'm just doing just Google searches here. So the Google search I did here.
Yeah.
The gravity ratio of Earth to Jupiter. So let's do gravity ratio of Earth to Saturn. Yeah, basically 0.9 is what's, wow. That's interesting to me to think that Saturn and Jupiter both being gas giants, Saturn having that much less gravity. So I guess it's and we okay, so we know that gravity is a function, or yes, gravity is a function of mass. Mass being the number of molecules, or mass being a measurement of molecules within a given space. So if Saturn has the same mass as Earth, just spaced out, it would essentially, you'd weigh the same, right?
Presumably, because, and I guess that's a thing. If we are under the assumption that Saturn, for example, does not have a very large solid surface,
something at its core, something beneath,
then all of, I mean, I'm sure there is a core, but it might be very, very small compared to the rest, the gas cloud that make up everything. So it could be very large, but not very dense,
right? By
comparison, which, would, I guess, equates out to nearly the same gravitational forces as
absolutely.
Earth.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking here too. Then, so we truly don't have a real reference of what the gravity of this planet fundament would be, because we don't have a measurement of mass for the planet.
Right, nor do we have an indication of how big it is.
Yeah.
Big enough, I guess, to have 50 plus moons.
And for another planet to smash into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I also don't know that when they were creating this planet, Bungie, went to the painstaking process of theorizing what a purely liquid surfaced planet would
I
be
refuse.
like in realistic
I refuse.
dimensions.
I refuse to believe that Bungie is non-scientifical.
I think they are scientifical when it suits them.
When it's, I like that. That's yes.
Yes.
Because Exos,
So
right? No, because video game. That's the
because
we've completely derailed this entire episode of what
not
is
in the
the
way I was
mass.
expecting either.
Yeah, right. Like, who even cares about this Leviathan? I'm so worried about the mass of this planet now. What's the mass of it? What's the gravity of a gas giant? And so yeah, so that's interesting to me to think that like Saturn and Jupiter are probably the two biggest things in our solar system next to the sun itself. Like obviously the sun would be the most massive thing in our solar system, and between the sun and Jupiter, that's where I'd say a good 60% of the gravitational pull of our solar system comes from those two sources. And to think that Jupiter is only 2.6 times the gravity, or 2.4 times the gravity of Earth, but is like the diameter of it is like 45 Earths. So that to me says it's huge, but it's not very dense.
Yeah,
a lot of empty space in there.
So all of this just is to say the Leviathan is fucking big.
Yeah.
And that's all we really know.
Full circle. We suck at this.
So I'm going to read the full warning from the Leviathan, and then we can talk about it a little bit. So repeating. The end of 1.7 and the beginning of 1.8. You must turn back.
Sorry. This is verse 1.7 and 1.8. Okay, yeah.
Yep, the end of verse 1.7, beginning of verse 1.8. Leviathan says to them, "You must turn back, save yourselves from the deep, save the world from yourselves. You must turn back. We live on the edge of a war between formless and form, between the sky and the deep. My eyes are wide, my gaze is long. Across the universe, as far as I see, the sky works to change its fires, and the deep drowns the ash. Sky builds gentle places, safe for life. Beloved fundament, refuge of trillions, the sky treasures this rich place. But the deep is here with us. Cold logic tests our walls. The deep claims its dominion, a ruthless final age." Oh boy.
Yeah. I mean, the first two things that come to my mind is deep and sky, right? Like that's we've talked about this in previous podcasts of what the deep is, but the three sisters just have no idea.
Right. This is their first interaction with these concepts of deep and sky, and this is a weird one because primarily in the lore readings, and my understanding is that the deep is a place, is the place that the entity, the darkness, came from or resides in. And the sky is the exact same thing. The sky is a place where the light, the entity, the gardener,
I was going to say
came from and resides.
The only reference we have, like we have tons of references to the deep and the darkness and the darkness, the entity, but very little references of what entity is the light. Like truly, the gardener is that's kind of it.
Yeah, we don't have a ton. There are bits and pieces here and there, but yeah, not in the same way that we have stuff referencing the deep. It could still be true, reading this entry. it could be speaking the Leviathan. We could read this two ways. We could read this as the Leviathan saying the deep and the sky as if they are the entities. Maybe it's just another name, similar to how darkness is used for the force as well as for the entity. Maybe deep is just another reference to the entity or also the place. Same thing with the sky. Or we could be reading this whereas the Leviathan is still referencing these as places, but in the same way that is personifying them in the same way that we would reference like a country as a place, but the country can still do something.
Sure. So now here's a question: in the books themselves, is deep and sky capitalized?
Yes. In this entire passage I just read, anytime it says deep or sky, they're capitalized.
So it's definitely thinking them as a proper noun place. Like it's definitely not referencing deep in sky as in like deep within the planet and sky being up above the planet. Like they're
definitely proper nouns.
Yeah.
Now is it referring to those proper nouns as a place, or is it referring to those proper nouns as
a
things,
person?
As names?
Interesting.
Yeah, so because I think it fits better with the other things in the universe, or at least from my perspective, I'm reading this as proper nouns the place. I'm reading, we are on the edge of a war between the deep and the sky, the same way that someone would read, I'm trying to think of how not to be political here.
There's no way to be. Like on the edge of a war between like Russia and the US or China and Russia or something like that.
Yeah. Same thing. You are not referring, the US is not a literal person, but you are personifying the place because that place is doing a thing.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
No, that's exactly. Yeah. I like that explanation of it.
So that's how I'm choosing to read this passage. And when we do that, so the first thing, I think the first 4 lines that the Leviathan says, or the first 6 lines, I guess, that the Leviathan says are very important. You must turn back, save yourselves from the deep, save the world from yourselves, you must turn back. So the Leviathan is telling them, hey, you're diving in this needle ship, the deep is down there. Save yourselves from being exposed to the deep. And seems to know what's going to happen to some degree if they meet with the deep. Because he says, save the world from yourselves.
Yeah, that part is the one that's kind of got me intrigued and I guess a little confused.
I mean, we could say that by nature of them going down to find, if they have this familiar that's guiding them, the Leviathan may not know they have this familiar, but it would maybe be able to guess that by the fact that they are on a direct course to the deep, the things that live in the deep, that clearly something is drawing them there, and that if something is drawing them there, it is with the intention of using them for the benefit of the deep.
So, this is very much causality.
Yeah.
The Leviathan is seeing a causal. I'm going to use causal because that word sounds cool. I don't even know if it's a real word. I don't care. I'm using it. Series of events. Ask Google. Google knows everything. So this Leviathan is could be seeing this as a causal set of events, saying that, save the planet from you, the sisters, because you, the sisters, are going to get exposed to the deep, and the deep is going to do this. And so it's almost like it's trying to, it sees a series of events happening, but it has no way of guaranteeing that event. But it's truly under the impression that these are the events that are going to pass.
Yeah. Yes, I think it sees any meeting of the deep and the denizens of this planet, or with anything from outside, as only being a negative thing and only having repercussions on this world as a whole.
Which which to me brings up another couple of points too. A, is Leviathan a type of guard? Is it some sort of anti-darkness thing, saying, anything that comes down here needs to turn back? Like, is it actively trying? Is it something that was put there by the light to say, hey, darkness resides at the center of this planet. Do not pass go. Do not pass Leviathan. Do not do anything
Do not
past
collect $200.
Yeah, do not collect 200 Ahab Carbones.
My impression is that it is a third party that
it's completely outside of both light and dark.
Because it says, we live on the edge of a war between formless and form, between the deep and the sky. It's not saying like my enemy or our enemy is down there and you should be afraid of it. It's saying, it's saying like, hey, this conflict is happening outside of us, and you do not want to, they're the bad side of this conflict.
You don't want to pick a. And it's interesting that even in that reference, that it is directly saying that is a bad side, like or is it?
Well, I suppose it doesn't. Outside of it saying save yourselves from the deep, it doesn't necessarily paint one as good and one as bad, because all it says is across the universe, as far as I see, the sky works to charge its fires, and the deep drowns the ash. Sky builds gentle places, safe for life. Cold logic tests our walls, the deep claims its dominion. So it's not necessarily saying like these are the good guys, these are the bad guys, but it is painting them as very opposing forces to each other.
Interesting. It's interesting to me that it isn't painting them as good or bad, because we as the player and we as guardians have always looked at it, oh well, dark's bad, light's good, and until Eris Morn and the Exo Stranger start questioning that, like have us start actively questioning that logic of, well, is one side good, is one side bad, or is all of this just a war that we're stuck in the middle of type thing.
And I find this line interesting. So the Leviathan states, the sky builds gentle places, safe for life. Beloved fundament, refuge of trillions. The sky treasures this rich place. I wonder if I were to infer some things from this, the first thing I wonder is if the sky has literally built Fundament, and maybe the planet that crashed into Fundament didn't just randomly crash. Perhaps it was a planet that was being devoured or being ended in some way by the dark, and its crash course was the sky's way of allowing the species to survive by putting it in its little planetary sanctuary, essentially.
Well, now this raises another question. Is Fundament a prison?
Well, prison or refuge, because the Leviathan says, beloved fundament, refuge of trillions, makes it sound like it's a place where people are fleeing to, where things are escaping to take refuge from something. Now, on a cosmic scale, maybe they don't even know that that's what's happening. Maybe the sky is saying, your species is going to end, but I want to preserve you in this place called Fundament.
Interesting.
And on that note, perhaps the Leviathan itself, if it truly is a third party to all of this, but just very, very old and very wise, is one of those refugees.
Now there's a thought. So that's more what. So I don't want to ruin the big surprise, but obviously there's something down there. And that was where my curiosity was. Is this a prison for that thing down there, creating a separation from the refugees on the surface to the prisoner at the core?
Well, and one thing that I would wonder is if this was a place built by the sky, why would they why would the refuge also be the same place where the prison that wants to kill everything is?
Hide something in plain sight.
Maybe so. I also wonder if, the sky built this place and then the deep still found its way in.
Absolutely.
But I'm kind of under the opinion from reading this, and there's plenty more from the Leviathan as we go on. That I think the Leviathan is a third party outside the deep and the sky, outside the light and the dark, and is just a very old entity that has an understanding and has taken refuge on Fundament to get away from the deep. And that's where its fear of it comes from. And it may not necessarily be a prison guard per se, but it at least is trying to steer other denizens of the planet away from getting tangled in this.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that thought.
That's my vibe at the moment. We'll see if that changes as we read more.
Well, let's hit the next verse then.
Yeah. So Leviathan says all this, and Arash protests. Old Leviathan, creature of myth, this world is no refuge. We live short, hard lives. We die in the dark. The storm above us will never end, and soon the god wave will take us all. Above us there are no storm joys, monsters. There are only storm joys, monsters, and moons of apocalypse. Let us go down, down where we may discover the truth, some power to avenge ourselves upon our betrayers, and some hope of survival. The Leviathan answers. So that they're just rebutting, like, no, this place really sucks.
Yeah. They're talking about the God Wave. That's the whole syzygy thing. That's where all the moons line up, and it creates this tidal, like all the gravitational forces are all in line, and it pulls all the oceans in one direction. And then as soon as they become out of alignment, that gravity, that energy has to go somewhere. So it just releases itself into a tidal wave that literally kills or would kill everything on the planet. Similar to what we saw happen on Titan. We talked about that. The sisters are very much like, nah, that up there sucks. We're not dealing with that. We're trying to find a way to A, get away from that, and B, avenge our family. Like the whole what was it, something about the betrayer?
Yeah, so I forget the name now. It was in last week's episode. And I'm sure it might come up again this week. But there was the sterile mother of the Osmium court that betrayed the Osmium royalty to the Helium Drinker.
Helium Drinkers. That's what I was thinking of. Yep.
Yeah, so they want to seek vengeance on the Helium Drinkers, and as well as that mother whose name escapes me at the moment.
I remember it starts with a T, I think.
Yeah, it's like Taois or Tauix, something like that.
Tauix, that sounds right.
So yeah, they want to get vengeance on both of those groups for putting them in the situation they're in, and for killing their father and all that good stuff.
And for some reason, just now, it hit me that when they say helium drinker, helium as the element.
Presumably, yeah.
I don't know why I don't know why that had any relevance on anything, but for some reason that just hit me that they're talking about an entity that drinks helium.
They have a whole lot of balloons and host a whole lot of parties and all talk in very high squeaky voices. That's why no one can stand them.
It's just a whole continent of me. That's all it is. That's canon now. You realize that now, right? Like that's the whole reason their island stays afloat is it's attached by all the balloons, and they just they had to take over another island because they kept drinking all the helium from all their balloons. No, damn it.
And for anyone that hasn't watched the movie Up, there's your spoiler.
Oh shit. God damn.
But let's try and steer ourselves back here. So yeah, the Leviathan says, "Hey, don't go down there. It's bad news. This is a refuge, refuge from this war." And they're like, "Yeah, it's not so great here. This is no refuge. We want power to, defend and avenge."
Yeah.
And the Leviathan answers, "What power calls you down to the deep? What instinct draws you away from high hope? Quick breeding krill people, I tell you, for eons I have watched your struggle, clinging to the sharp edge of survival, balanced between the deep and the sky. You were my treasure, my proof against despair. For this is the deep claim. Existence is the struggle to exist. When the struggle seems lost, when the safe place crumbles, everything turns to the deep to survive. I reject the deep claim. You will turn back, sweet krill of hope. You will choose the sky instead."
Interesting.
So the Leviathan is, again, I think is the third party.
I don't see it as being as one side or the other. It definitely sees the light in it, and it still doesn't paint it as a good or a bad, but it definitely sees the sky as the better option of the two.
Yes, it prefers the sky over the deep. And what I find very interesting here and very relevant to the Witch Queen: "For eons I have watched your struggle, clinging to the sharp edge of survival, balanced between the deep and the sky." This seems to insinuate to me that the krill people in their current form are able to wield either the deep or the sky.
Oh, shit.
Which is pretty similar to another little race we know of called humanity.
Interesting.
So
that may lead to why. Interesting. Okay.
That may lead to why in the Witch Queen trailer, Hive are wielding light, because they may be the first race that was capable of wielding either.
Interesting.
But they made a choice by becoming the Hive to align and wield the power of the deep darkness.
Right.
Whereas we were not really given a choice. We were just kind of revived and had it.
It's interesting to me that like, and I don't know necessarily that the Hive were given a choice. That it's just the three sisters. Well, and we're getting there too. We're kind of jumping ahead of ourselves in the story.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting.
The three sisters had a choice, I should say. They could have turned back. They could have not dove.
They could have heeded the warning of the Leviathan and said
they could have listened to the Leviathan.
This shit ain't worth it. Maybe it is better up there to just die. Because that one line, the what is it, the line of existence again? Read that one to me.
Existence is the struggle to exist. When the struggle seems lost, when the safe place crumbles, everything turns to the deep to survive.
So to me, that straight up says like anything. The whole idea of living is being alive, and therefore, once that idea of being alive becomes a failure point, or something is reaching the end of its life, it looks for a way to say, "Nah, I want to keep going," and find that eternal life or that continuation of self, which everything apparently turns to the deep instead of turning like. It's interesting to think like we as Guardians are eternal. We're basically zombie magic space things because we were risen from the dead and we walk around and we can die 100 times over now. Again, until the light gets taken away, then obviously then we are lightless. But because of the light, we are made eternal. So it's interesting to me that so many things have turned to the deep, and I'm curious if it's an easier choice to go to, like, what is the price that we as guardians pay because here's something. We as light bearers have to give up our memories. Like, we are all amnesiac.
Yeah, we have no memory prior to revival. Yep.
But the darkness isn't so much that way, it seems.
So here's my 2 cents. I think if we're following that thread thought, for the power of the light, for being reborn, you are giving up your memory. For the power of darkness, you are potentially, and I guess I should say that the same is true of the light, you are potentially giving up your memory. And with the darkness, you are potentially giving up control, I think, is the trade-off. Because if we look at the dark future that Elsie talks about, people have lost control of themselves for the sake of having dark and using dark.
Interesting. I like that. I do. I like that analogy.
The other little bit here that I find interesting. So, when the struggle seems lost, when the safe place crumbles, everything turns to the deep to survive. Didn't Guardians just do the same thing?
Oh, shit.
When we were threatened with an unknown force, we literally turned to the darkness.
Because, like,
as
the
our
pyramid
first
ships
option.
up, and we've, like, a lot of people are assuming that the pyramid ships are of the deep or of the darkness, but not necessarily.
Well, I do think they are, to an extent.
I don't know, man. I'm not 100% sold on the idea that they are either of the dark or darkness followers or whatever. So obviously there's the geographical look at it, right? Like the pyramid ships are the simplest 3D object, being a 4-sided object. The traveler being the most complex object, right? Like it's a sphere,
Right,
so it has infinite number of sides. Like so that's it. To me, like, obviously it's, triangles versus circles, right? So that's the bit, or tetrahedrons versus spheres. Like that's the big. That's what as far as painting a picture of X versus Y, that's the picture supposed to be painted. But we have, and we know during interference that Savathun tried to say, hey, I'm trying to stop you from communing with this, with the darkness, communing with the pyramid ships. Sorry, I did it. I was going to tell myself not to. The tetrahedron ships.
They do refer to them as pyramid ships in the game. So
it drives me up the freaking wall, because a pyramid has
more understandable.
5-sided pyramid, because nobody looks at the bottom of a pyramid, right? Like, you look at the pyramids in Egypt and you're like, oh, hey, it has 4 sides. It has a 5th side. It is on the bottom. The part that connects to the earth is a side. Like, it's not like it's just empty space. Anyway, this is the mathematician in me getting angry, and I refuse to give in to him. So Savathun actively was trying to interfere with that. Like, that was the whole point of interference. Like, she was trying to stop us from communicating with him. But that's it. I still am not 100% sold on the idea that the tetrahedrons are of the dark. But I guess they should be, because, like, we talk about the Garden of Salvation and the whole scene at the end of what was at the end of Shadowkeep's campaign, where it's like, we are not your enemy, we are your salvation. And we know that the darkness sees the resurrection of guardians, or even any type of resurrection, as a perverse, like, heresy. Like, this is, like, the sword logic is finite. Like, this is, once something dies, it died for a reason. It died for something else to better itself. So there's no reason for that thing that is dead to be brought back. And for that dead thing to be brought back, that is a direct perversion of the sword logic. So I suppose the pyramids are of the darkness, but I'm still not. I'm like 90% there on that.
I think they're absolutely of the darkness. I think it's a lot more nuanced, though, than the. I think the darkness is a lot more nuanced than just saying, like, you shouldn't be alive, you're dead now. Like that.
Ooh.
The darkness has never been that violent. Like it has violent outcomes, but it itself has never been the agent of that violence. At least not that we have seen.
It's always had something to use or manipulate.
It's always used something or manipulated something.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I think
okay.
the Guardians are kind of
absolutely
are on, they're on that same razor's edge between the deep and the sky. They are clinging to the sharp edge of survival. And I'm really drawing a lot of parallels between humanity and the Guardians to the Krill. And
absolutely. It's sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I don't know that the darkness wants to prove its point by killing everything itself. I think it wants to prove its point by showing that anything that wants to continue its survival will turn to dark power and will destroy everything else, thus proving the darkness's theory.
I like that logic, because that would absolutely be like, it's where you talk about like the dark is more nuanced. Like it's not as direct as, hey, that thing is shit, go kill that thing, now you're better than it. Now or not necessarily you're better than it, but you are better, you are greater, you are more powerful, more awesome, more whatever than you were before, due to the very nature of sword logic of that thing has died, you have bested it, whatever. But to go through that line of manipulation, to go through that idea of, because that entity wants survival and it is now turned to the darkness, it by its very nature wants to end everything around it to be the last surviving thing, essentially, thus being the most powerful by nature of nothing else being existing, and thus proving the darkness right. Like it's like that self-fulfilling prophecy thing, right? Like, haha, I told you so. Like that's what I see that at. That, man.
So to put this in a bit of an analogy, although maybe a tad gruesome one, but to try and put this in some kind of real world terms, because that always helps me digest an idea. Let's say we take a fictional island.
Okay.
And on this island live multitude of what we would consider, let's say, like Stone Age tribes, or maybe not Stone Age. Like they have spears and bow and arrows, and that's their main source of weaponry.
Okay.
And there's 4 or 5 or however many of these tribes that live on this island. And food supplies are running out due to over harvesting or whatever, and there's only enough to go around for one of these tribes to survive. And these tribes now are at war with each other to try and figure out who's gonna be the surviving tribe. And one of those tribes turns to rows across the ocean to a modern civilization and buys guns and brings them back to their tribe. And their tribe now wins this conflict by nature of having more power, better artillery. That is essentially the situation that I see as what the darkness does. It is the arms dealer for survival. And by nature of being in that role, the darkness is looking over this conflict, and in its great age, all the conflicts that have ever happened, and has theorized the things that seek power for the sake of survival, continue to survive until they meet something that has more power than them. And they always come to me when they seek more power.
Now that's an idea there.
And on the flip side, conversely, the sky seems to be would take that same situation, and instead of saying, instead of waiting for let's say same situation, tribe rose across the sea or the lake or whatever, and instead of going to the dark country to get guns and ammo and things, military force, it goes to the light country, and the light country doesn't give them weaponry, but gives it technology to come back and grow enough food for all of the tribes.
There you go. Now that's, yeah, I like that. I absolutely love that analogy. That's one. Both halves of that promote a future for something to exist, but one being a very narrow, I'd say narrow-minded way of thinking, that being the darkness, and the other being a more complex way of thinking, and by nature being complex, I think is a broader view, or maybe a wider lens, to say, hey, instead of just ending, the other three tribes, let's make it in a way that we can have everyone survive, or keep the survival going by nature of a positive spin on things. Like that's definitely what I think of that as. Like I do absolutely love that analogy, though. That's a good one. I like that.
Now the unfortunate bit that I think the point the darkness is trying to make and the light is trying to refute is that whenever a group, say one of these tribes, is in imminent danger of no longer existing, they are never going to turn to the light country. They are always going to turn.
That is absolutely what the Leviathan is saying. Like, yes. It's straight up saying, like, there any time that it comes to imminent destruction. I think that's the key there, is that it's not necessarily like, hey, we're pretty sure we're going to survive. If we do, we do. If we don't, we don't. It's like that, hey, we're going to die tomorrow. And for the three sisters, that's very much present here. That whole God wave, the whole syzygy, that they are heading to the darkness. Like, it's by the very nature of darkness or the deep or whatever, it is going to have them interact with it.
Yeah. And so the Leviathan is telling them, I reject the deep's claim. I reject the idea that everything turns to the deep to survive. And is asking them, is saying that it believes they will turn back. They will choose the harder path of the sky instead.
Interesting.
It believes that they have a choice between the deep and the sky, and that they will choose the sky. And maybe in a bit of unqualified optimism on the part of the Leviathan.
Yeah, slightly.
So Xivu now offers a protest to the Leviathan. You are huge and old. Our lives are short and desperate. If that's the way the world's supposed to be, I won't have it. If people like Taux are supposed to win, that was the betrayer, I won't let them. I will beat the world until it changes. I will kill anything in my way. So that Xivu doing exactly that. I will use whatever power I can get my hands on, and I will force the world to be what I want it to be, presumably where I survive.
Thus proving the Leviathan right. Like, saying, hey, you're you're literally doing this is very much a self-fulfilling prophecy here. Like
Yes.
the Leviathan said, hey, by very nature of survival, it will always turn to the dark, and I'm telling you to not do that. I believe that is not the proper choice, and that it is a choice. But this is this is it's I mean it seems very causal, like it's interesting to me because we always think of the light and dark as paracausal entities, and they are, like the ability to wield the light and stuff like that is a paracausal thing, and guardians themselves are paracausal. They make their own fate by nature of being paracausal, because of the light. And so it's interesting to me to think that, like, is the darkness purely paracausal, or is the darkness is the darkness the other side of that coin, right? Like, is light paracausal and darkness causal?
I don't know for sure, but we do have to remember the Krill do not have paracausal powers at this point.
Right.
Nor does the Leviathan, as far as we know.
Right. Right. These are all just entities that have no understanding of the light and dark, but they have never had any type of interaction with the light or dark, or at least we're assuming the Leviathan has never had any interaction. The Leviathan is very much like, hey, I'm super old, and I'm telling you right now, darkness bad, sky good.
I guess the other can of worms here, if we're talking paracausal versus causal, and we're assuming there are no light or dark powers at play here, this is just the will of these three sisters. Is free will causal or paracausal?
Damn it. Fuck.
I don't know that we can do much with that statement, honestly.
I think, therefore I am. Take that. Right. you shit.
That's pretty much all the relevance we're gonna get out of.
God damn it.
This idea at the moment.
I mean, that's yeah. What is causality? Like, what is causal? Like,
right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So we're not gonna go down that rabbit hole.
Nope.
But you can think about it.
We're gonna read the next verse now.
We're gonna read the next verse. So the Leviathan has one more statement for these sisters. It says, "This fatal logic, hear my monopole scream, it will consume you. Before you lies the worship of death, the ruinous path. The sky builds new life against the onset of ruin towards a gentle world. The deep embraces death, saying this is inevitable and right. I exist as hungry ruin. Turn back from the world-killing way, or you will live as death and devastation. The sky is the harder way, but it is kinder. My charge is now balanced, my voice exhausted."
This is it. It's like, look, either you turn back or you're screwed. Like,
well, and it's not even saying that. It's interesting because its warning isn't that, hey, turn back or the darkness will destroy you or the darkness will end the world. It's saying turn back or the darkness will make you end the world.
Interesting.
Which is a little different warning.
Yeah.
It's saying, with the power you will gain, you will only, create more destruction and ruin and death. And I guess if we're going to relate it back to the earlier analogy, let's say that tribe that now has guns and artillery that has taken over their island, survives and prospers, but starts to run low on food again. And there's an island within rowing distance that is not very well defended. And, now they have the means to continue what originally was just for self-preservation is now turning into conquest because, all the reasons that you can self-justify.
Sure.
We need more space for our population, or we need more food, or we need more whatever. It can become a slippery slope. And I think that's maybe what is being referenced here. Like you will get power from the deep to fulfill what you want, but in doing so you will turn into the very bastions of the very thing you're trying to prevent happening to yourself.
Dude, that's holy Jesus.
We're getting real deep tonight, no pun intended.
That's what I'm saying. Like this is every time I get a speechless moment, and this is it. This is the deep. Like this is. I continue. I'm speechless right now.
Yeah.
Like this is very much like. Yeah. No. Continue.
So Sathona answers this time, speaking not to the Leviathan in protest, but to her sisters. She says, "Sisters, I have my father's familiar. Look, it answers me in plain words. It helped me find this ship. It gives me strength when hope is lost. Who will you trust? The voice that wants us to live and suffer as we have always lived and suffered? The Leviathan that offers no hope against Tauix or the world wave? Or the plain, honest worm? Let us see where its whispers lead us. Let us go deeper. Let us dive, O sisters mine."
Well, shit.
So Sathona is kind of playing her own game, because to her, if we're under the assumption that her whole goal is to live as long as she possibly can, then what the Leviathan is saying is exactly counter to that.
Absolutely. No, 100% there.
And she's also fulfilling the Leviathan's, the deep's claim. What the Leviathan says the deep's claim is that when the struggle seems lost, you will turn to the deep. That is exactly what she's doing, because she is afraid of her existence ending, and so she's going straight to the thing that is promising her the ability to continue.
Absolutely. Like this is very much this is very much this is happening as a point of fact now. Like this is no longer like a hey, maybe you should. There's no longer a warning of hey, you should turn back. This is just straight up like this is happening because it's happening. Like it's that's the way it's going to happen. That's the way it's no matter it. I think of it as like a when people have a kind of a very basic understanding of like choices in time, right? Like anytime you see that portrayed in any type of theater or Hollywood or anything like that, each moment in time and each choice that you make is another branch in a timeline. And do I turn left? Do I turn right? Do I say yes? Do I say no? And each one of those infinite points of choice or whatever creates infinitely more timelines, and that's the whole point of the Vex and their prediction engine, the Infinite Forest. They are trying to look through as many choices of these timelines and make as many predictions as they can throughout these and that, to me, that's a very binary way of thinking, right? Like that's and that's absolutely the I mean that's the Vex to the T. Like that is everything about them is a computerized binary type logic, yes or no, on or off type thing, left or right. Whereas I don't know that actual time flow is necessarily a binary thing. Like it's, boy, we're getting deep tonight. Holy shit. Okay, one quick thing, and then we'll put all that back in the box and put the box away. So looking at time, I don't think it's very much a binary thing. I don't know if it's a left or right thing. I think it's a more of a I like the idea of it being a what would you call that? A ambiguous? No, I don't know. Ambiguous is the word. I don't know what word I'm looking for here. But choice-driven series of events, right? Like to me, it's more of a to do a Doctor Who quote, it's less of a line and more of a wibbly wobbly, timey wimey thing. Like it's more of a rug, right? Like time is more of a rug rather than a straight line.
Yeah.
I like those analogies of time not necessarily being an exact left right thing. Anyway, put all that back in the box. We'll put that box away.
All right, back under the bed.
Back on. Yes.
The other thing about this entry, in regards to Savathun, is she uses that "Oh sister's mine."
Oh
which,
my God, yes!
I think is an indication that she is intentionally trying to use that phrase to exert power or exert manipulation over her sisters.
Now that's the question there, right? Like, is this a lesser being hearing something and repeating it? Like, is this like a child hearing mom and dad say "fuck you" and running over to the grandma and saying "fuck you"? Or is this a true understanding of the noun mine syntax of when I use that, I am actively putting power out. I am controlling whatever that noun is in that encapsulated phrase there. Like when I say am I less of the 3-year-old running over grandma and saying "fuck you," or am I more of the parent running over grandma and saying "fuck you"? Like, is that like that? It's interesting to me. I know that's my super basic analogy there. Like your analogy is this very eloquent, like this is very like this island with tribes and guns and mine just, well, fuck grandma. No, Johnny, you can't say fuck grandma. All right, well, fuck you then. Okay, well, I guess you win that argument. Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, so that's
I don't expect that Savathun has a full understanding of that phrase, but I think she has an understanding of that phrase.
Sure. And that's the other thing too. Is that Savathun, or is that the familiar? Is the familiar directly controlling her?
I don't know about direct control, but the familiar may very well have been coaching her on, hey, when you talk to your sisters and you really want to like get them on your side, use this phrase. So
that's an interesting thought there. I like that idea.
It might be a case where she's using it knowing that it's going to help her get what she wants, but she may not understand the mechanisms of that yet.
Yeah.
I think
like
Savathun is
running around telling grandma "fuck you." Like it's they know, but do they really know?
Yeah, I think Savathun, as she is now in game, absolutely knows all the nuances behind that phrase. But this being the first recorded time of her using it,
I believe so. Like it's not the first recorded time of it being used. Like.
Oh no, not even close.
In hell, in earlier books of sorrow, the worm itself was. I keep saying the worm. What is this? Husk?
The familiar.
Familiar.
That's just what they refer to it as. Yeah.
I don't know why I keep drawing that parallel to the familiar being a worm. I just for some reason in my head
they call it a dead worm. They call it a dead worm.
Okay.
Yeah, they do. So,
it has used that phrasing with them to talk to them and speak to them. So
we don't know the exact events that happen after this conversation with the Leviathan and the start of the conversation with what we now know as the Hive worm gods. But needless to say, they arrived in wherever these worm gods were, down in the depths of the planet Fundament.
They chose to dive deeper. They completely, like the Leviathan used its last or gave its last point on the matter and was like, look, either you turn back or you don't. That's on you now. And they say, all right, well, we're not turning back. And the Leviathan just kind of like, I don't even think Leviathan even acknowledges them. They're like, okay, sucks to suck. It just like I don't know. I don't even think that it like shrugs and walks away. It just walks away. It's like it's not even that's where I see it as much the third party, right? Like it's not even saying, well, it sucks to be suck, like, man, I tried to warn you type thing. No, it's just like, well, here's the facts. Bye.
And it seems to have removed itself from the equation regardless of what happens. And it is exactly that. It's given them the advice that it thinks they needed to hear, and now it is up to them to heed it or not, and they choose to not. So that brings us to verse 1-9, the bargain. You are Arash, heir to the osmium throne. You stand on the naked hull of an ancient ship. You stand exposed to the crushing pressure and ferocious heat of the deeper fundament. It should annihilate you. It is by my will alone that you survive. So this sounds like they're in like the planet's core or very close to it.
Oh, absolutely. Like we've gone past this liquid ocean of whatever to a very hot place, a very dense hot place.
I am Yule, the honest worm. Behold my passage. Behold my vast displacement, my ponderous strength, my great and coiling length, my folded jaws and curled wings. Behold the hiving cities symbiotic with my flesh. I am Fesend, Arash. I am at the beginning and end of lives. So I'm going to break some of these down before just reading the whole thing because there's a lot.
That's fine. Here. I was going to say this sounds like this is going to be the meaty verse.
This is going to be the meaty one for tonight at least. So this is Yule. Yule the honest worm, it calls itself.
Yep.
And in its description, we get something very, very similar, in my opinion, to an Ahamkara.
Oh, it has wings. That was the first. Like as soon as it said it, I have wings. Like that was my first go-to. Was like it's either directly calling itself an Ahamkara, or it is saying, I at least look like one.
Behold my vast displacement, my ponderous strength, my great and coiling length. So it's describing itself as very large, and very strong,
like thing.
My folded jaws and curled wings. Behold the hiving cities symbiotic with my flesh. I am Fesend Arash. I am at the beginning and end of lives. And now that's a word that I need to look up.
Rosh?
Fesend.
Fesend? I'm curious if Fesend and
Arash is the name. Arash is the name. I am Fesend, Arash. Addressing Arash.
Oh, Arash. Okay, gotcha. I'm following now. Yep.
I am at the beginning and end of lives. So I have never put this together before. Fesend, or fecinity, is the ability to produce an abundance of offspring or new growth, synonymous with fertility. So I think Yule, in this case, is literally describing itself as presumably the mother of all other hive worms.
Ooh.
Behold the hiving cities symbiotic with my flesh. I am Fesend, the beginning and end of lives. I think...
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So I don't know if it's describing itself as the mother of the other worm gods, or if it's just saying like, it is the worm god that spawns all the little hive worms.
Okay, so it may not be a like the other worm gods may be sisters and brothers, but it is the only one capable of producing offspring.
Seemingly, yes.
Okay, yeah. At least thus far, the way it is describing itself. It is seeming as if it is essentially like a brood mother. Like it is the only thing capable of producing offspring and continuing the lives of the worms.
Yeah.
But it's very much a giant worm with or a giant
snake, maybe.
I hesitate to use the term worm because anytime we talk about these long coiled things, like to me it's anything coiled is like a snake, right? Like, or a rope or something like that. Like, but I mean the fact that it is describing itself as a long, enormous coiled thing with wings, that to me says giant snake dragon.
Again, I don't know why I ever didn't put this together. I'm stupid, I guess. If you spell worm differently, it means something very different.
Oh shit!
So worm, WORM, and then there is worm, WYRM.
Oh shit!
Which is described
literally
as
fucking
a
dragon.
serpentine dragon, normally of European origin.
This is it. That's it. This is the definitive moment. They are 100% related.
Yeah. In modern use, the term worm is reserved for worm-like qualities. A dragon which typically has a long body shape that is either legless or with small legs.
When it was describing itself as this coiled, enormous thing with wings, my first thought was like a snake-like dragon, or the dragon that the homunculus becomes in the Full Metal Alchemist movie. When it's coiled up in the ceiling and literally held into the ceiling by spears and stuff, and the Germans are trying to use it to have magic on the other side of the gate. Like that's literally the first thought that came to my mind was that image there. And so the fact that it is describing itself as that, why I think that it is definitely like we are reading this as YW WORM when it is describing itself as WYRM.
I think that's exactly what's happening. So
I think this is a what would you call, like a misinterpretation of a word,
mistranslation.
Right? Like, there you go. Yeah. It's directly telling them I'm a worm. I am a WYRM, and they're hearing, oh, you're a worm. Okay, yeah, because I've seen a worm like you on the ground before. You're just really big now.
Now the only thing that pokes a little bit of a holes in this theory is that we have literally met Zol, and
who on you?
Zol is very much a chitined worm.
Okay, all right, but we know, or we've theorized, that the chitinous is possibly cancer, right? Like it's some type of cancerous growth that is an armor-like growth on them, and we know that Ahamkara can shapeshift. So what's to say?
This is true as well.
What's to say that the worm gods cannot shapeshift, or are just so corrupted beyond belief that is what is left of them? Is this very hardened chitin? What was it? Carapace, outer shell thing.
Carapace, I think is how. Yeah,
sure, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah,
words are hard. Damn it, I'm making up my own words.
A couple other theories just to throw out there and see what sticks. If we assume that there is importance in the fact that Yol is the one that is introducing themselves first, and if we assume that there's importance in the fact that Yol is the one that says it is by my will alone that you survive, aka they have somehow created a space for these sisters to inhabit, that they don't just aren't.
I mean, they're sitting on the hull of the ship, like the fact that the ship has made it this far and hasn't just completely crushed under the immense
heat
the density and heat. Yeah, exactly. This ship hasn't just diamondized right there. Like
Yol is saying its power alone is what is allowing them to survive, and it is introducing itself first, specifically as the of fertility as well as of power. Maybe it is the progenitor. Maybe it is the original Hive worm god, and the offspring look different. or the if we're assuming that all the other worm gods are perhaps its offspring.
Sure.
And Zol being the, as we learn in Warmind and further, Zol being the weakest of all worm gods. Maybe it looked like that because it was weak. Maybe it shapeshifted like we were talking about. Maybe something about the corruption, something about the connection to the darkness turns them into that over time. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities.
I like these ideas. Like these are all very valid ideas. Like I don't see any one of these ideas being like the de facto thing, but I also don't see any of them as being just like this totally far-fetched thing. Like everything about this seems like it is plausible.
So the next statement here kind of maybe lends some credence to that. So it says, "Behold," this is still Yol talking, "Behold, Ire and Zol and and Akka, the virtuous worms, look upon us and know that we are good." And they do this fun thing with the O, where it's G-O, and then the second O is in like square brackets, and then D. So you can read it as good or God.
God. Interesting.
But it is listing those four as a set, as the virtuous worms. Perhaps they're all siblings.
That to me, that's what that seems like. Like the fact that the one is introducing the other. That's very much is like, hi, come meet my kids. This is Akka. She likes to knit, and this is Zol. Like he's kind of a shit, but we pick on him because he's kind of a shit. This is sorry, I've already
and Ire, but they don't.
And Ire. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. No, yeah. These are the twins, and Ire, but they're fuck them.
Yeah.
They're
the weird twins. You know what those are like.
It's fine. They can read your minds and shit. Fuck them.
They bend spoons. It's awful. We have to buy new cutlery every day.
You can all like every weekend, man. It's ridiculous. I come home and the entire dishwasher is just bent spoons, and I'm like, you assholes. And then I gotta go buy
here, really, and they just go, there is no spoon. I don't.
There is no spoon. I don't know what you're talking about. And then I'm just like, there is a spoon, and you bent it, you shit. I'm gonna go buy new ones.
Yes, I think.
God damn it! Needed to say we are excited for the next Matrix movie.
Just a little.
I'm super excited for it. Not to go completely off topic, but the little duck on his head in the bathtub in the trailer that confuses the crap out of me every time, and I'm just like, what the hell is happening here? So yes,
I need to know what is happening. But yes, so I think if we follow this theory, Yol is the original. Yol is the original Hive god worm with a Y, and the offspring of Yol either take on the same form or take on the more worm with an O form. For one reason or another.
Interesting.
So Yol, if
or
we
is,
continue,
or is it a level of evolution there, right? Like is the one so are the four offspring just not old enough to have grown their wings or what have you?
It's possible. I mean, the Hive exhibit very insect-like characteristics. If we kind of do a weird merge of the two, we could say like, okay, maybe they start out as little worms and they grow into really big worms with armor, and then eventually they cocoon and they emerge as dragons.
Now there's that, and then. God damn it.
Now, the very next paragraph lends some more talking points to this theory.
Okay, keep going while my mind just sits here in a puddle of mush because it's been blown so many times.
The next paragraph says...
That idea is genuinely...
This is a possibility, I think.
I feel like that is... I feel like that's a thing.
So the next paragraph. For millions of years, we have been trapped, parentheses, growing in the deep. From across the stars, we have called life to fundament so that it might contend against extinction. For millennia, we have awaited you, our beloved hosts. So 2 things. They're saying they have been, and this is another one of those square bracket trapped / growing end square bracket. As if you could, I don't know if they're intending you can read that either way, or if they're intending like they're saying one thing and meaning another, or something like that.
I like that idea too, but like the first part of that, like the whole trap thing, like that to me leads me to believe that Fundament itself is a prison for them.
Well, and this is where we get into how much do we believe the words of the Hive gods, of the worm, because they are saying for millions of years we have been here in the deep. From across the stars, we have called life to fundament so it might contend against extinction. So they are claiming, credit. They are claiming that they are the ones that have been calling planets to fundament, that they have been calling these species that would otherwise go extinct into the planet fundament so that they might continue survival.
Interesting. Yeah.
Whereas the Leviathan was saying that
directly the opposite.
That like the sky created the planet.
Yeah. Interesting.
Now, maybe we could argue that the sky did make the planet specifically to be a prison for the worms, and the worms have been calling other species to this planet, have been somehow influencing other planets to crash into Fundament, with the expectation that eventually something on one of those planets would be able to get to them and set them free. So maybe it's a little bit of both.
These, God damn it, this is getting good, man. This is genuinely like, this is next level shit. Like all of these ideas I feel like all of these ideas are very plausible. Like there's no one idea here that's like, hey, yeah, this is the definitive truth. Like a lot of this is seeming to me, I still like the idea of a fundament is a prison for the worms. That maybe because it was a prison, it caused them to evolve or grow. Trap / grow. The grow is that evolution of them, right? Like the mother worm evolving into that dragon, that serpent-like dragon, and then her having her offspring, her 4 offspring, and them just because the fact that the one says I've been here for millennia, right? Like it's man, this is.
So a couple of questions come to mind for me here. The only young Ahamkara that we have record of would be Riven.
Absolutely.
When she was with Mara.
Yep.
Do we remember if they ever describe what Riven looks like when she's young? Do they mention if she has wings? Do they mention any physical characteristics?
That is a good question.
I don't remember. I think maybe they may have mentioned her having wings, and that she like coiled or sat on Mara's shoulders.
I know that she coiled like around Mara's neck, not as in a noose type thing, but as like hung there, like that it liked sitting there, being coiled around her as like a neck piece, right? Like not like a, like obviously it didn't like fold itself into a tie and I was like, hey, look, I'm a Windsor knot today. Tomorrow I'll be a square knot. No, it literally just like draped itself around her as like a royalty piece of gold type thing. But I know when I remember when it talked about Uldren bringing it to her, that it was in his hand. So I mean it was tiny.
It was very small.
But I don't remember it. I don't remember any of the character, any of the physical features that they described of it. So I don't remember if it, and does it have wings when we go and attack it in Last Wish?
And that's what I don't remember. I'm going to do a quick look up here because I really am very interested.
3D model of Riven.
Well, that's going to give me the current Riven as we know it, or a Riven that we don't know and we don't want to know.
Now I'm going down that path.
That's the bad path. That's the deep.
That's the deep. That's the deep. That's leading me to that path. Yeah, no, that's absolutely what it is.
Let's see. Car named itself Riven Donner. It's number 2. I'm looking up the lore entries here. So I think this is in Telic number 1.
I have a very interesting 3D model of it, but
so this is what we have. Aldrin went out voyaging amongst the worlds, swift as a blue shift ghost. In time he returned to the reef with a creature no larger than his hand, saying, "Behold, sister, the lie that makes itself true. This is an Ahamkara." So we don't get a description, at least when they first introduce Riven.
See if this works. I'm going to throw one here in the chat channel of a picture that I found, which is a current day 3D model of the in-game Riven.
Yeah, as she is in the raid currently.
And to me, she has no wings. Like, she's very much more of a lizard-like dragon than a serpent-like dragon.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And in this, so this is the conversation between Sheer and Mara, whereas the first and maybe only time we've ever seen Riven actually feed off Mara.
Right.
It says, "At this, the Ahamkara coiled around her neck, yawned, and showed its fangs, for there was a crevice between what was and what was wanted." So even then, it doesn't describe Riven as...
I swear there was one time that Mara talks about sitting under the wing of Riven, like sitting in her...
Yeah, I feel like they're... I feel like that too.
So maybe, but again, we're still taking all this from, what is the true form of an Ahamkara, right? Like, what's the true form of a worm god? Like, all of this stuff we're taking at what is this true form when they can shapeshift. By very nature of them being shapeshifters, we have no idea what their true form is.
This is true.
They could put a form out in front of us and go, "This is my true form," and we have no way to believe that. Like,
and we don't know. Yeah.
I mean, we truly have no way. It's very similar to this is kind of like an obscure reference, but my wife was watching, or I guess rewatching. I think it was X-Men First Class, and it talks about Mystique, and she, it says, what is her true form type thing, and everyone thinks of her as the blue with red hair Mystique, and so but that is that even her true form? Like that. Yeah.
So I found the book we were talking about. This is Riven from the book The Dreaming City, and the very first line is, "Mara sits cross-legged in the canopy shade of Riven's wing." So at least at one point in time, Riven had wings.
Now, whether or not that was a shape-shifted form or not, but...
Right. We don't know.
But it had wings.
So the whole reason I was going down this path is, at what age does Riven have wings? And would that line up with the possibility of her having to like grow into them in some fashion? Now, by nature of the worm god saying that they've been here for millions of years, and Zol still looking like Zol when we meet him, the timelines don't really add up. So I'm not sure. But suffice it to say, I think the worm gods, and we've theorized this before, I think the worm gods and the Ahamkara are absolutely related in some way.
I 100% think so.
And
until I can be proven otherwise, that's everything that we're seeing is evidence to support that idea. I haven't seen any evidence to disprove that idea. So until I find evidence that what is it, that the evidence of absence is not the absence of evidence. I like that saying for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But yeah, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the other way around. I don't remember. Anyway, see, I like the saying so much I can't even remember it. But yeah, no, I until I'm presented with evidence saying that our two completely unrelated, they're the same thing. I'm a winged dragon. Is a Ahamkara just a prepubescent?
Well,
or is it not
Ahamkara? If anything, the Ahamkara nature of having the wings,
right, by having the wings, and right.
And if Zol could shapeshift, why the hell didn't he do it in his fight with us? Like,
because he hasn't broken out of his. They can't shapeshift until
they're reach maturity or
yep.
whatever. So the only thing that I wonder about there is when they meet Riven, and she is described as a young Ahamkara, although I don't know if she's described that way by herself or just by the people around by nature of her small size.
Right, because we as humans inherently look at something small and think that it's young, but that's only because that's how we as humans evolve. We start out small and we grow bigger, and that's how pretty much every mammal and fish and hell, even plants start off small and grow bigger. So, but just because something's small, like, I mean, an adult spider is small, but it's still an adult, right? Like it's by nature of it being small does not make it younger.
Yes. Although every instance we have seen, and I don't know, we get into this like when everything's an unreliable narrator, like can you really trust any info kind of thing?
When everyone is Savathun, then no one is Savathun.
So I think best to just leave it at there is a very distinct connection between Ahamkara and the worm gods, and Yul's current form just lends evidence to that.
Absolutely.
So to continue.
No, we've completely derailed.
No, we completely derailed. So Zol is saying for millions of years they've been trapped, and they have been calling things to fundament for something to come break them out, essentially. She continues, or it continues, against you stand the cruel Leviathan and the forces of the sky. They would crush you down into the dark. They have arranged their moons to drown you in fear of your potential. We want to help you, princes. We offer to each of you a bargain, a symbiosis. So Yul is saying, and even here they separate the Leviathan from the forces of the sky. They say the cruel Leviathan and the forces of the sky,
which is interesting to me. I think they see the Leviathan as the cruel Leviathan because it is actively turning things away from the darkness.
Yes, I think so too.
Stopping things from getting down there and freeing them.
But they are saying, and every good lie has a grain of truth, or every good story has a grain of truth. And I think they're doing exactly that when they say that the forces of the sky have arranged the moons to drown you in fear of your potential. Potentially, the sky, the traveler, that extra moon, we know, based on the Osmium King's observations, like the moon should not be lining up this way, but something is making them
nothing
do it.
At all should be causing the moon. Like, and we talked about this too. 52 different moons with 52 different orbits at possibly 52 different planes of 52 different degrees of rotation. Like, mathematically, and possibly 52 different speeds, right? Like, mathematically, they should not be able to line up. But for whatever reason, something is going to cause that. Something is actively trying to cause that. Whether it is the Traveler, because we know that the Traveler there's a 53rd moon, right? Being the Traveler of Fundament, and we don't know if it's because of the light or because of the Traveler or because of the darkness that this is happening. But the darkness, the worm is telling them, hey, this is happening.
Yeah. So the darkness is saying, like, these forces are arranging your extinction because they're afraid that you would release us, that you have the potential to gain our power. Now, by nature of the dark being its manipulative self and believing that when the chips are down, things will always turn to the power of the dark to survive. I wonder if the darkness didn't align the moons itself.
That's the other half of the coin, right? Like, that's the other half of the argument. Who's to say it wasn't the darkness to say, hey, we're going to cause this to make this series of events to have that. Now, that to me leads a level of paracausality. That's where it comes back to paracausality, because that means that they are actively changing the fate of this world and changing the fate of the Krill of the Osmium Court to actively help itself to break free of this prison that they're in.
So I'm gonna offer a bit of a alternative perspective.
God damn it! It's gonna be the better one too.
We know that these worm gods, or at least they are saying they are the ones that have been drawing other species, have been crashing other planets into Fundament. So they have a means to pull a planet and make it crash into Fundament. Even in their prison, even trapped, they are. Now, they've been here for millions of years. Who's to say that this is the first syzygy that has happened on this planet? Who's to say that they haven't done this hundreds of thousands of times before, expecting that eventually the end of the world is going to force one of the races they've crashed into the planet to find them?
God damn it.
And it may not be paracausal that they have.
So then that, God damn it, because that makes more sense. Because of fucking course it does. Because the damn it, Myth, the ship that they come across, it was a used ship.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Of another civilization, and it was a ship it was a ship specifically designed to burrow into the planet.
This is why you get paid more.
I don't. Yeah, nothing times 100 is still nothing.
If I crit on a 0 attack, I've technically crit, but it's still 0. Shit. You're not wrong, but yeah.
But no, I think that's exactly it, especially from the spaceship, by being of a old, ancient, technologically savvy people.
Right, like that.
Yeah, they have been doing this over and over and over until
just waiting till something comes down.
They get somebody that is desperate enough and has the means to actually find them in search of the power they need to prevent it from happening.
So then, to me, that absolutely says that Fundament is a prison, and it was designed to keep them trapped. But now, just because they're trapped doesn't mean that they can't exert their influence on things. So that they are actively bringing these planets into Fundament to try to get something to eventually get down to them. And by nature of being immortal, time is nothing to them, right? Like we talked about that too. Of a minute is a minute compared to a year, compared to a millennia. If you're immortal, it doesn't matter. You just sit there and wait it out, right? So I think Fundament was a prison.
I think you're right. And looking back at what the Leviathan said about it, now that I'm thinking about this more, it says, Sky builds gentle places safe for life, beloved Fundament, refuge of trillions, the sky treasures this rich place. Well, okay, I thought that read a little differently.
It's half and half, right? Like the Leviathan really being a third party is looking at this as an outside entity of saying, okay, well this is how I see it. But then the worm gods are describing this directly as a prison. Like, we can't get out of here. We can exert our influence and we can wait. We can wait it out until something comes and finds us. But we have no means of escaping this, be it the gravity of this planet. Like where now is, when they say trapped, is it a prison, or is it like because of where they're at in the planet, they are trapped there because they physically can't leave, right? Like, is it a gravitational pull that is preventing them from leaving the center of the planet? Like, is it less of a prison out of being built as a prison and more of a prison in the sense that they just can't get out?
So here's a theory which
comes
to me as I reread, specifically because of the capitalization. So that line, for millions of years, we have been trapped / growing in the deep, capital D. From across the stars, we have called life to fundament so that it may contend against extinction. I wonder. So we know that the only way that so far, the only way that people can travel to and from our plane of existence to the deep is via singularities. That's how the Taken pop in and out, is through singularities, little mini ones. If they're saying they're trapped in the deep, then perhaps they literally mean that they are trapped in the deep, the place. They can't escape the realm of the darkness, the realm of the deep. And there is a singularity in the middle of Fundament that they can potentially come through, but they don't have the means to do it without help from the outside.
So I'm going to take that theory a step further. What if there is a black hole at the center of this planet? And the gravity
account for its gravity.
That's what I'm getting at, right? Like, the gravitational pull of this black hole is enough to keep this thing as a gas giant, but is so great that it, if something falls off one of these continents, it literally just falls to the bottom. So maybe this is water. Maybe it is a continent of water or something. Maybe not a continent. Maybe it is a planet of water, a gas giant of water or something like that. Like that, or maybe it's a liquid helium, right? Like when they talk about the helium drinkers, maybe they are literally just drinking the ocean and they're losing their minds to it because they whatever. But what would it take to keep a planet of liquid helium in a continuous cohesive state, right? Like what prevents it from it just evaporating off into nowhere land, right? Like that's it. A lot of this seems like there could just be a black hole in the center of Fundament. You're looking up the temperature of what it's by helium, aren't you?
Maybe.
Yeah, you are. God damn it. Because science, damn it.
Science, damn it. It's there when it's convenient for them.
Exactly. Exactly. And not because video game. I refuse to believe because video game. There's always a science for it.
So, liquid helium. At the temperature of negative 452 degrees Fahrenheit is where helium is in its liquid form.
It might be a little cold.
Maybe a little cold. Although maybe that's why you fall in and you just turn into an ice block.
That, I mean,
that's
this is like a lot of this seems like it could be a thing. So okay, so now I need that conversion over to Celsius. You said -4th.
Yeah, so it is negative 269 degrees Celsius.
269. Okay. So subtract. So now convert that over to Kelvin.
4.15.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dick. Just move the decimal twice, right? Like that's.
I don't know. Wikipedia has it listed in all
God damn it. I thought you literally were just like, yeah, I already knew where you were going with this. So eat a bag of dicks. Take that. And nope. Freaking Wikipedia. So sorry, say that again.
4.15.
So 0 Kelvin is absolute zero.
Yes.
Like that is the point where molecules stop moving.
That's the theoretical point where entropy is no longer increasing.
So I mean, we're talking like just above that.
4 Kelvin above it. 4.15 Kelvin above it, to be exact.
For helium to be in a liquid state.
Yes.
That's nuts.
It's cold for sure.
So not just that. I mean that just leads credence to like there is no sun, right? Like there's no sun on this planet. There's this planet, this gas giant has no form of heat of any source.
Well, that's assuming that their ocean is made of helium. We don't have any information to.
I'm making a lot of assumptions here. I am making a lot of assumptions here, but I mean I like to believe in assumption every now and then. It's a bad idea, but I like to do it.
So let's get a little bit back to the.
Yeah,
the
I was trying to say we're pushing our time limit now.
They're trapped in some fashion. They specifically state they are trapped in the deep, capital D. So in one way or another, they are in the plane, the deep, the location. And they believe that these Krill sisters can get them out. They offer a bargain to each of them, a symbiosis. They say, take into your bodies our children, our newborn larvae. From them you shall obtain eternal life. From them you will gain power over your fragile flesh, the power to make of it as you will. And should you find an imperfection in the world, an injustice or an inconvenience, you will have the power to repair it. Let no mere law bind you. We ask one thing in exchange, O princes. You must obey your nature forever. In your immortality, Arash, you may never cease to explore and inquire, for the sake of your children. In your immortality, Shiro, you may never cease to test your strength. In your immortality, Sathona, you may never abandon cunning. If you do, your worm will consume you, and as your power grows, O princes, so will your worm's appetite. But we offer eternity, Arash. We offer you a chance at the universe. Would you deny your people infinity? Reach up to me, and let my flesh be your sacrament. So this is just the terms of the contract, essentially. you will take into you one of our larvae, one of our newborns. They will live inside your body and grant you immortality for as long as you follow your true nature.
Gross.
Which now I see that this.
To me so that to me says a lot about Xivu Arath, right? Like we've always questioned like why is she starting this war with everyone? She has to.
Yeah.
By nature of her worm, she has to keep warring. Like she can't stop warring, even if that means destroying her sisters. Like that is her nature.
No, you may never cease to test your strength. I find it interesting for Savathun, in your immortality, you may never abandon cunning. I don't know that that's her real motivation anymore, that that's her true nature. I think her true nature is survival at all costs.
And there lies the cunningness. Like what does cunning mean to her, right? Like is cunning literally just I am outwitting something in front of me to live longer? Like is that, I mean,
maybe so.
There's a lot of breakdowns in the term cunning. Like
I almost wonder if she's kind of pulled one over on the Hive gods even at this point, by making them believe that her nature is cunning, or they are intentionally binding her to her true nature, if it is survival at all costs, having a worm that will eat you if you don't follow your true nature. Like they would be
that. I really like that thinking of it. I really like that.
I kind of see it's a silly analogy, but I kind of see the worm gods in the sense as like a Rena-Center.
Absolutely.
They are making a deal that seems too good to be true in a lot of ways, with these entities saying, we will give you everything, you will have immortality, you will have power, no laws will bind you. Right. They're like, hey, you'll have
plasma.
You'll have all these wonderful things. You just got to sign on the dotted line. And
they are
the worm gods are the salesmen, knowing or betting
that it's a 45% interest rate.
Yeah. Betting on the fact
it only costs you a cup of coffee a week.
Yeah.
That's just rude. You're not wrong, but it's just rude.
That's what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
I think the worm gods are very much trying to use them as tools. They are offering them this, betting on the fact that they will eventually fail, but by the time they do, the worms will have already gotten what they wanted out of them.
Yeah, they will have been able to free themselves. Like, and that's it's interesting to me that maybe not free themselves, but they will be free.
Yes.
I think that's the ultimate goal of the worms. Like, or not necessarily the ultimate goal of the worms, but at this point in time, them being trapped where they are, they want to be free. They want to be no longer trapped. And so that's the whole point of them waiting all these years and waiting all this time for something to come down to even attempt to communicate with them, to even start trying to do this process of, hey, we'll give you immortality, we'll give you all the time you want, all the time you think you need, but by nature of immortality, we're just going to sit here and wait. Like that's.
Yeah. I'm coming to terms. Maybe isn't the right word, or isn't the right phrase, but I'm really digesting this thought that the worms are trapped in the deep. I still keep coming. That.
I think it is literally, and again, I keep using the term prison, but it's prison in the sense that like they can't escape. It's not necessarily a jail prison, right? Like it's not like an Alcatraz Island thing. It's more of a prison of, I have no means of escaping this. even if it's paradise, it is still a prison. Like it's still, I have no means of getting away from this.
Well, and I'm shifting my perspective a little bit. So I don't necessarily believe, as I'm thinking about this, I don't necessarily believe that the sky built Fundament to be a prison for the worms.
Okay.
Because the worms are not in our plane of existence. They're in the deep. I don't think... we've kind of been operating under the idea here with a lot of the theories we've thrown around regarding this, how they're stuck. We've been operating under the idea that they were put in the deep to be their prison. I don't necessarily know that that's true. The deep might be where they originated from. They may be entities that formed in the deep, the place that came from that realm. And it's not that they're trapped in the deep as in they were thrown in there and someone locked the door and threw away the key, but it might be more in the sense that that's where they came from, but they know there's something else out there and they're trying to get to it. They're trying to get to our realm because they know it offers opportunities that their realm does not.
Holy shit. Why do you get all the good ideas? That is starting to be more of my way of thinking now too. I think you're right. I think that it is. I think you really hit it on the head there. I think that because like we don't have an actual reference of the time from the ship went to the Leviathan to now they're talking to the worms. It could have passed through some sort of plane. Like it could have passed through something. It could have gone through an ascendant realm. Like it could have gone through a singularity in the middle of this planet, and they are now on the other side of it. Or the worms could be projecting themselves through the singularity, right? Like they could still be trapped on the other side of the singularity, and they're just using a projection of themselves.
Like, Savathun herself uses a thrall in a black hole to impersonate, and
herself to talk to Nokris. Like that is not a far-fetched idea that they are literally just projecting themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of where I'm at the moment. I don't think that they were imprisoned there. I think that just happens to be maybe it's some like cosmic comedy, or maybe through some intentional means that planet happens to be the place where they can force their way through out of the deep into our world to
like a gateway type thing,
whatever they want with it. Yeah, like that planet just so happens to be the gateway, and maybe Fundament was built on top of that gateway to try and prevent it from ever being opened, but is still.
That could be the other half of it too, right? Like that could be the light side of it. Like if you're looking at it from the light side, thinking of the light as trying to always outplay the darkness and out trick the darkness to say, well, I'm just I know this is how you can get in and out of this existence. I'm just gonna build a planet around it. Sucks to suck.
Yeah, and I'm gonna make it a sanctuary, and it's gonna be a refuge for life.
Paradise. Maybe not paradise. Refuge is a better. Yeah. Because from the sounds of it, it's not a very nice paradise. It's definitely a refuge. Like
when the options apparently were either extinction or continue existing in Fundament, like I guess from a certain perspective, like that is the more desirable outcome, is to end up on Fundament. But we don't truly know who's putting them there, because we now have two different, the sky, or the Leviathan saying the sky has been putting refugee races here, and now the worms saying we have been pulling refugee planets, we've been pulling planets facing extinction to us to give them power. So we don't know who's been kind of pulling the strings on how things get there.
Absolutely, this is very very much two people telling the same story. It comes back to that, like which version of history do you believe type thing. It's the is a man a liberator or is he a tyrant?
Well, and that's an important point. We are reading the Books of Sorrow as written by Oryx and the Hive.
Yeah, like this is literally how they are how they have seen this thing. So they could have even seen the Leviathan talk to them as although we think of it as a third party, they could have seen it as oh well, he really likes the sky, he must be of the sky, or he must be a champion of the sky, or maybe not a champion, maybe a cheerleader of the sky or something. We're seeing this story as told from different points of view type thing. Like that's it. That's genuinely mind blowing.
And on that note, I think that's where we're going to end it for tonight. That is,
I was going to say
that's all of the. I don't know if book 1 is the right term, but all of verse 1's passages.
So that's verse 1 through verse 1:9.
Yes. So the next is verse 2, when we pick things up, and most of verse 2 are much shorter, so I expect we'll get through those a decent amount quicker than what we did with verse 1. Although who knows?
I was going to say, if we keep going on these deep topics, man, the last 2 episodes, like that last episode and this episode, I had so many moments of like, well, shit, or that, there's so much here to be digested, right? Like this is just, with all this being just verse 1, right? Like this is just like the beginnings of the Krill. Like they at this point in time, they still aren't even Hive, right? Like they've just started the bargain, and they're still not even Hive. Like
nope. The 3 sisters have been offered the bargain for immortality from the worms, and now we just have to await their response. But spoilers, they do it.
Damn it, man! We had one shot. No.
That's why we've been shooting a whole lot of Hive in the head for about 7 years now. So
literally, that's literally it. That's the whole. Yeah. Okay. Well, shit. I guess on that note, I'll put the mush that is my brain back into one congealed form and try to come up with some thank yous. Let's see. My first thank you goes to the Leviathan for wanting to be the warner of the warning beacon, like hey, I'm just going to tell you some facts and then I'm going to walk away. Like, I mean, that to me is the true, like that's definitely neutral, right? Like that's neither, that's like, it's like, that is the true neutral of just stating facts and then just walking away. Like, no, hey, if you do this, da 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 da, like that's giving influence, right? By nature of saying, if this, then this, that is a kind of influence type thing. So for it to just say, well, X is X, and then just walk away, like that's thank you for being so logical, Mr. Leviathan, and so neutral. Thank you, Worm Gods, for being exactly what you are, and what I still believe that you are, is giant dragons, serpent things. There's got to be thank you, science. Oh, thank you, science, for giving us absolute 0. I think I've thanked science every week now, but it's fine. I'm going to thank science anyway. Thanks Google for having ratios of gravity between Earth and Saturn and Jupiter, so we could have a better understanding of density and mass and gravitational pulls. I'm giving a non-thank you. So this is what's the opposite of a thank you? That just be a fuck you.
I mean, I don't know if that exactly translates ungratefulness, but
I like that. I'm giving an unthank you to Bungie for not giving us a gravitational reference for Fundament. That's all I wanted. I just want a gravitational reference. That's all I want. Give me some sort of like, tell me that this is oceans of helium, and then now we have a reference point. That's all I need. Yeah, thank you, Google, for helping us with that. Oh man. As always, thank you, Alpha, for introducing us, and for starting our shenanigans tonight. And thank you, Myth, for leading this train. Like, this is as much as we kind of like decide, like, are we doing a episode on this? Are we doing an episode on that? I have a tendency to throw ideas out, but Myth has truly been leading this Books of Sorrow train, and it's been absolutely phenomenal. Like,
it's a fun one to lead.
I absolutely love this one. Like, I owning the grimoire and then cracking it open every once in a while and reading a passage here or two is completely different experience than what we're doing right now. Like, when we're starting at the beginning and we're reading them through page by page and finding the things, like, this is capitalized, this is how they're talking, like this is, and breaking, like, doing this analysis of it, doing this breakdown of it, is what that's what I truly see this podcast as, is that we're not necessarily just telling a story, right? Like, it's myths and stories, right? So we're telling stories, and we're breaking down different types of myths. I know I have a tendency to make a lot of assumptions here, like, well, this is an ocean of this, so it's got to be this. Oh, well, we're not specifically told that, so we can't specifically assume that. And so I like that. That's definitely, I absolutely love that. So again, thank you, Myth, for being here to help me and better understand the world of Destiny, and to help all of our listeners, all 12 of them, I think.
Well, and thank you, Zor, for continuing to send reminders on Monday nights so that I totally don't forget that we have something going on.
Yeah. So normally I send them out at like noon. Definitely did not send this out 5 minutes before we're supposed to start and go, oh shit, I got a thing I got to do.
Yeah, but I think it came together okay. And actually, I have a, I guess, slightly early Christmas gift announcement thing. I say it's gearing up that in December, possibly latest would be January, but hopefully December, in time for Christmas. We will have all of our previous episodes re-uploaded on Podbean, and those will be available for at least a year.
Get the fuck out of here.
All the way from, I believe it was Sure Ido was the first one that I have recorded in such a fashion that I can post there.
Are we able to go
our
back
current one?
Are we able to go further back and peel the audio from like the older one? Like, oh my god, like what? Okay, now this is new to me. Holy shit! All right, nope. Now you got to expand a little bit, Myth.
So yeah, essentially,
it
just comes.
Drop a bomb at the end of the episode and walk away. This is the idea of neutral.
Well, just gonna walk away.
Yeah, just walk away. Just walk away, Leviathan. Be that way.
No, just essentially it comes down to, we have the ability through Podbean to self-fund they have a yearly cost that you can toss in that will allow you unlimited hosting for that calendar year.
Well, cool.
So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and do that. That way we can have all of our episodes hosted for anyone that wants to listen at any time. Like I said, at least from Sure Ido on. We run into some difficulties collecting the others because we were on very different setups at the time.
Very different.
Recording off of, technically I was stripping audio off of a YouTube stream that Eclipse was doing. That audio is neither great nor complete in most cases.
There are many times where one of us didn't have comms set to record, so they're kind of poopy episodes, but I enjoy them.
They're not the greatest, so I don't know. I'll have to see what I can do there.
Well,
but we do
cool, man.
we do still have a lot of good content, even omitting our earliest stuff. And I think our earliest one of note that I think would really have a lot of relevance would be the Maracena.
I was going to say, I know the Maracena, like, I think part 1 we did really well, and then part 2 I tried to do it from my son's PlayStation and forgot to set it to record. So part 2, there's
and we lost some audio, yeah.
No audio from me. and then I want to say like 2 weeks later, like Mick had no audio for some reason.
It was yeah. We are very much professionals at this.
Oh, we're we know what we're doing now. We have all the pre-show checks and all that jazz.
But yeah, so worst case, we may want to anyway, depending on how the end of Season of the Lost goes. That might be an opportunity to maybe go through Maracena with some new eyes, and also have a good solid recording of that content. We'll see, but yeah, so that will be coming. Like I said, should be December. At the very latest, it will be January.
Sweet, awesome. Well, cool. Well, then on that joyous early Christmas present note, we'll give a quick. This week is Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to anyone that's listening to this prior to Thursday, and anyone in the international area. I still think that Thanksgiving is a U.S. holiday, but they may celebrate Thanksgiving in other places. I don't know.
Thanksgiving, as we know it, is very much a U.S. holiday.
Yeah. So, but hey, if you just like picking a random day out of the year and eating a bunch of turkey and chicken and calling and ham and calling it a way to give thanks, then we'll call it that Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Hope everyone has a good holiday weekend. And of course, I hope that everyone has a really good holiday and really good weekend. So yeah. Myth, any last words?
No, I think I got all my announcements out of the way.
Say that very threatening, like very dirty hair. Any last words, Pilgrim? Yeah, no. Okay, yeah, no. Well, in that case, from all of us lore nerds, to all of you Guardians out there, we'll see you next week.